And just also here to talk about why the DNR needs to strengthen the master matrix and needs to take up our petition. And also and everywhere.
I'm James Berkey. I'm from North County. 16 to 17 years ago, I was with one of the founding organizations called Concerned Citizens Against Factory Farming. We've been able to keep factory farms out of Worth County for 15 years. And now just recently they're starting to come back in. I was on the past board of the Iowa Farmers Union. I belonged to the CCI for 15 to 16 years, and I'm a member of the Sierra Club, the Humane Society, Food and Water Watch, anything that to fight these things, to protect our environment, to protect my way of life, I belong to. And I'm very adamant about keeping factory farms at bay. So right now, it's not about producing food for America, it's about making greed for the 1%.
Nick?
Nick Shute from Morgan County. I got in this fight because of two cattle confinements placed 1,900 feet from my bedroom window. There's no relief in Hardin County, period. You leave your home to go enjoy a little recreation, you're gonna do it here in Iowa, you gotta go somewhere else. That's behind my fight.
And then, you want to do it too?
Sure, I'm David Kitt. I'm with the Associated Press. Here this morning.
Awesome.
I'm Amanda Prince. I'm a news reporter with Channel 5.
Awesome. And then Pam, you want to go? Can you hear people when they're talking, or do we need to talk louder?
No, most everybody I can hear. There might be a few people that are maybe a long way from the phone, and I'm having trouble hearing them, but I just tried to move away from the noise of my house, and then it got quieter.
Okay. Who are you, and why are you on the phone?
My name's Sam Willis. I'm from Wayne County, and I want to thank all of you for being there today because I think that these are awful, and you guys are amazing. And Wayne County, within the last 6 months, have had 2 of these big setups come in. I think they have like 3 barns apiece, and then we had another ginormous one that's not even safe to work in come in. They are trying to put up another one that is less than a mile from my home, and then another one that would be almost a mile north of my home. I have 2 small children. There are tons of children in this area, and they're just coming in and taking over before anybody can say stop. And so I really would like to see the Master Matrix be more protective of us and our needs and our environment, because otherwise we're going to suffer great consequences.
Awesome. Thank you, Pam. So really quick, before we just kind of like let you guys answer questions and do some interviews, is just kind of going over the 3 things that we think are important right now. Is strengthening the Master Matrix. CCI and Food and Water Watch filed a petition to strengthen the Master Matrix. We want to make it harder for factory farms to build, because right now only 2% of applications are denied. And we know there's too many in Iowa. They're polluting our water, destroying our quality of lives. So we are part of a larger coalition of people trying to strengthen the Master Matrix, and we have over, Erica, how many petition signatures already?
Over 1,000.
Over 1,000 petition signatures, trying to get to 2,000 before we turn them in. But we're calling for things like, instead of being a 50% passing grade, you should have an 85% passing grade. Instead of the counties passing the matrix every single year, we have to call 99 counties every single year. Why don't they just automatically have the Master Matrix every year? Save us some time. Other things where they have to go above and beyond, like protecting the air, water, quality of life. We want those to be worth more points. And the things where they don't have to do anything, like just being a particular size or being as far away from something as they are, those should be worth less points, because they don't have to do anything to get those points. So it's a lot of things like that. We can dig in on the nitty gritty later, but strengthening the Master Matrix, it is not our end all be all. It is our stepping stone to build power so that we can eventually fight for a moratorium for local control. But that's my quick 2-minute thing on our Strength the Master Matrix campaign. The other thing I want to just dig in, especially since we have Worth and Wayne County here, is Edith, do you wanna tell us, like, what's going on in Worth County, and try to maybe 2 or 3 minutes, just like, what have you done, how big are they, who's building them, what are you trying to do?
Jeff is also from Worth County and he has to leave.
Oh,
Maybe-
yeah.
Do you wanna
Sure.
make sure you speak?
Yeah,
time
I'm
to
sure.
speak?
First.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to recognize that, and I mentioned this at the EPC meeting, we have to make certain that the EPC and the DNR is dealing with facts, scientific facts. And they should be objective and unbiased facts. I've done a lot of research on it, I've certainly not read everything, but I found no scientific basis of the setbacks that are articulated in the master matrix. There just seem to be arbitrary numbers. And those arbitrary numbers, according to research that I've done, and I could share these facts separately, according to research that I've done, those setbacks are among the lowest setbacks in the nation across all the states that have setbacks. Those setbacks are also significantly lower than what the scientific data shows the air pollutants of hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and the odors and all the particulates. Scientific research shows how far that stuff travels at various levels, and the distance that travels is farther than what these setbacks are. So they're clearly just arbitrary numbers. They're the lowest in the nation. The odor limits are the lowest in the nation as well. And the master matrix was, as I understand it, was designed to put controls in place to make certain that as these confinements came online, that there were protections for the community, there were protections for the environment. And the reality is, you can see by the chart, there are nearly 7,000 CAFOs in the state in 2016. According to DNR's own count of how many hogs and Iowa State University's estimates of how much manure a hog produces a day, last year alone, there was nearly 10 billion gallons of liquid manure spread on the grounds of the state of Iowa. Now that manure, even if it's injected 30 inches into the ground, it's going into the groundwater. It's why the water's dirty, it's why we have the smell, the flies, etc. And the need to change the master matrix is huge. I heard one gentleman say today that the master matrix was created somewhere up around 20 years ago. There's been no changes to it since. All the things that we've learned, all the studies that have been conducted, the scientific research that's out there, and the change of the technology that's out there to control this stuff, and the master matrix hasn't been updated to reflect those things. Now, in my opinion, if the EPC and the DNR doesn't take action now to stop, put a moratorium on the factory farms, put a moratorium on the CAFOs, and not just those of 2,500 head and above, because the reality is where they put the cutoff limit for those that require the master matrix and those that don't, if you have 994 animal units, so that's just shy of 2,500 animal units, they're producing 1,163,448 gallons of liquid manure a year.
It's the size of a town of 8,000 to 10,000 people.
Yeah, and that's that size of an organization, that size of a CAFO does not require to follow the master matrix. In fact, they've got a whole separate set of rules in the laws of our states. Now, if they produce 6,000 gallons more a year because they have a couple of extra hogs, then they have to follow the master matrix. Completely arbitrary numbers. We've got to fix it.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. So do you want to tell us what's happening in Worth County?
Well, 15 years ago, as Jim has indicated, the concerned citizens in Worth County went all the way to the Supreme Court and kicked CAFOs out of our county, excuse me. Since May, there have been 7 permits granted by Worth County, and they're all these 2499s, and so it's under the they're not really regulated by the master matrix. And one of the things we're asking is to really lower that number, so I believe if it was up to 500, it would not be regulated, but over 500 animal units, it would be regulated. And, as Jeff was talking, this is untreated manure going 450 feet from my house. It's like one CAFO of $24.99 is produces the amount of manure of a town of 18,000 because pigs produce about 9 pounds of poop manure a day. If a town of 8 to 10,000 people were spreading untreated manure on our grounds, we would be in an uproar. But we're not in an uproar. The other issue, most of these in Worth County are on karst land, which is very porous land that leads right into the aquifer. There's a CAFO being built next to my house. It's right on an aquifer that leads right to the water supply at Kinston, Iowa. The likelihood of a spill, we have someone in our group that's in the cement industry, and he said, there's two kinds of cement: cracked cement and cement that's gonna crack. So there really is no protection. It's absolutely no protection. And so, the children, the incidence of asthma for kids who live near a CAFO is between 25 and 56%, depending on where they are. It costs a family about $3,500 a year. So if my great nephew, who's 3, gets asthma, by the time he's 18, it'll cost his family roughly $64,000. Last summer, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks with drug-resistant E. coli. One of the really big concerns about the over-application of antibiotics. Antibiotics are used to control diseases because these hogs are in very close confinement, but it's also used to promote growth. And 87% of the antibiotics in this country are used on livestock. That means 13% on humans, and we all know that doctors are being pushed to not give us so many antibiotics. That's a drop in the bucket, since 87% of this, where did I get E. coli? It's one of the major concerns as a byproduct of these CAFOs. And if you read the research, scientists are extremely worried about a pandemic epidemic because of the animal to human transfer of these diseases. And we won't have anything to fight it. I was in the hospital with E. coli because there are only 2 antibiotics that can fight that drug-resistant E. coli.
And what are you guys doing right now? Like what
Okay,
yeah.
so I found out about, I heard at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon that a CAFO was being built less than a mile from my house. By 5:30, I'd written a flyer and I was door knocking. 5 days later, there were 25 people at our house. Less than 2 weeks later, we had a meeting with 70 people there. And if you go to KINT or KAAO and the Globe Gazette, we had really good press coverage. So, we go every single week to the Board of Supervisors meeting. We hammer away. We have a meeting tonight to organize. We are not going to go away, and we are going to work to stop the expansion of CAFOs in Warren County to the very best of our ability. We'll do whatever it takes.
Well, just a couple more facts for people to consider. The industry, the hog industry, estimates that there's a 2% mortality rate in these CAFOs. The 2% of their hogs are gonna die. Based on the number of hogs that the DNR reported in confinements last year, that's nearly 500,000 dead hogs that had to be disposed of last year. With 10 billion gallons of liquid manure and 500,000 dead hogs, when does it stop? When do you start slowing stuff down and put the brakes on and say, we maybe ought to take a look at what this is doing and put some different restrictions in place instead of using a matrix that virtually guarantees people are gonna get approved? Because the way that the legislators wrote the law is if an operator completes the master matrix and they meet the requirements for an F, a 50% passing score, the DNR must approve it. It doesn't matter that the county supervisors recommend disapproval. The law says if the operator's application abides by the rules, it has to be approved. That's just asinine.
And one thing to up your manure number, the industry says 22 billion gallons of liquid manure every year. And I trust the industry. If they're gonna say 22 billion, I'm going with 22
Yeah.
Is that Iowa alone?
Yeah, Iowa alone, and I can show you, it's in the Iowa Farmer Today article, we have it bookmarked because that's a big number.
Well, and the thing to remember about that is we can throw that number out there, 22 billion, and go, wow. But you have to address also the fact that that isn't one time, that's not a one-time application just this year. That is every year, year after year after year.
And it grows exponentially, because every CAFO adds thousands of hogs. And there's dozens of CAFOs that are growing each year. So it's not just a steady growth, it's an exponential growth.
If you wanna sell some land, like in northwest Iowa, land is bid maybe twice as much as what it's worth.
Because they need someplace to spread it.
Spread it, yes. And it's very shocking to understand that you need land, bare land, to put your waste on.
Yep.
I have a feeling that they're using the young people wanting to come into farming to promote these things. They don't really care about the young farmers. What they care about is using the young farmers to promote this business which I consider to be bad. Farm Bureau, the pork producers have too much power in this state. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, Farm Bureau runs this state, and that bothers me. If they're so happy with insurance, stay with insurance and get out of the farming industry. I've had neighbors in '93, we had a wet year, running their honey wagon down the road, pulling into a field approach, pulling the gate, putting their waste on top of standing water. The guy don't still talk to me because I turned him in. But, you know, this voluntary compliance on whether, good manure management practices, or good farming practices, good erosion practices, it has to be mandatory, because they're not gonna do it. They're just gonna slough off, and, their almighty God is greed and the dollar. And it's ruining the state.
I'm gonna jump in really fast too, just so we have time, because you need to go in a little bit,
I was just gonna say one thing, then I'm gonna go.
okay.
Jim mentioned something about the Democrat or Republican issue. I don't believe this is, and somebody had a T-shirt today, I saw that was in the group, said this is not a red or blue issue, it's not a Republican or Democrat. And to prove that, Jim Berge over here is, I don't know if he still is, but I know he still is, the chair of the Democratic Party of Worth County. I'm sitting over here, up until I resigned last year, I was the chair of the Republican Party of Worth County for 10 years. This is not a Republican-Democrat kind of an issue. This is a societal issue. We're supposed to live in a civil society that is governed by rules that are established by government who is in place to protect its citizens. It's time by God that those elected officials, appointed officials, do their job to protect the citizens.
Thank you, that was a perfect decision. I don't wanna stop the conversation, I just wanna, like, Channel 5 has to leave in about 15 minutes, and they wanna do some individual interviews, but I also want Nick to talk, and I also want Barb and Jan and Pam to talk also. So, you guys are gonna go just talk to him for a minute?
Interviews, I don't know if he's gonna do one or not, if we guys took the road, but if you guys just wanna come out here, that way we don't interrupt.
Yeah, we'll send people out one by one, but I do wanna give Jim a chance to finish if you didn't get to finish what you were saying. And I wanna make sure Nick talks, Barb, Jan, and Pam. And then we'll just let you ask questions, David.
Oh.
So Nick, why don't you? Oh yeah, Jim, are you done? Okay.
All right, like they were saying with Master Matrix, it's a flawed system. There should be accountability held to it. There's not. The same way the manure management plans. What I find out a lot in Hardin County is if we go into a wet fall or corn's not quite ready yet, they will, and the pits start filling up, they will transfer manure from one facility to the next, which is compromised to the facility they're dumping in. Their master matrix plan did not include the additional gallons of manure. So even the DNR, when I called down and talked to them about it, I said, isn't that a violation of their manure management plan? They said they'd rather see that than a spill. Therefore,
The answer was yes.
yes. So, these laws that are supposed to be used to protect us, have enough loopholes in them to cater to the industry, and that stuff needs to be changed.
What's going on in Hardin County right now? Factory farms are building up there, right?
Correct.
How many and what size are they and what's going on?
I can't tell you how many right now. We got a big water fight going with Pine Lake. There's a water quality meeting coming up, I believe the 27th, and Rob Hope's gonna be down there. Is it the 27th?
Whatever that Sunday is. Yeah.
And, we was gonna do this meeting, previously, and it's for the local citizens, and somehow Farm Bureau caught wind. And that's how we got the weak resolution at the county supervisors. Farm Bureau stepped in and basically they wrote the resolution. It is a resolution, but it's very, very weak, thanks to the Farm Bureau. You know, it's like Jim said, maybe you should stick with insurance because what they're doing is not benefiting the rural island. Take advantage of it.
Awesome. Jan, you want to add something about press days or?
Yeah, it's been a while. So what was it, April?
Last year. Yeah.
Last year. Our town of 27,000 disclosed that the city council disclosed they were going to have a new industry, and there's going to be a pork slaughterhouse that went through 10 million hogs a year, and it was going to be inside the city limits. And they wanted, public input, so we gave them some. There's pictures. And basically, there was a lot of strong arguments against this. One of which was the poverty level was going to go up because we have a high poverty level already in North Iowa, 40% in our town. And they were going to bring in people. This was going to be a non-union plant. By putting this plant right there in north central Iowa, it was just encouraging these CAFO's growth, and indeed it's happened, even though we threw them out. We said we had a month, 4 meetings during the month to work with the city council and argue against it, and in the end, it did not get voted in. So that was thrown out of Mason City. It did immediately move south to Wright County, where they are now under construction. The county supervisors in Wright County were all for it. Some of the problems that come from having this slaughterhouse and the CAFOs that would be situated around us, which are now there, or being built around us now, are flies, rats, of course water. It goes through 3 million gallons a day from the aquifer. Now when they talked to us, it was a really big deal, with 2,000 employees. It went to half of that in Wright County, and now they're talking about robots. So, their promises are worthless. I don't know how many people they will eventually employ, but they are, the general manager of Prestige is a known union buster. He's been in the industry for a long time. So that was a huge argument. We didn't want a non-union plant. We wanted people to be able to organize, and of course they will be able to organize, whether or not it's popular with the management or not. There were a lot of promises made. They even cleaned up. Prestige has, hundreds of factory farms around the state, and they even cleaned up the smell. They can do that. They're not forced to, but they can do that. And so they did that during the Wright County fight, because you couldn't drive into the town where it was without driving by Prestige plants. So they cleaned up their odor. I don't know.
You're still feeling the impacts and you're still fighting.
The impacts are from all of North Iowa, and there is all these CAFOs going in, 7 in Worth County. I've heard up to 60 permits, but you don't even know how many because you don't need a permit if it's small. So they won't tell. So we've been fighting to get just the county commissioner supervisors to forcing them into letting people know that there's one coming in. There's a permit within 3 miles, everyone gets notified, instead of putting some little tiny print in the paper. No one's gonna read that, no one's gonna see it. So now different counties are doing different ways of notifying people. And the schools are panicking because they don't have the funding. That was a huge argument that this was going to put pressure on schools, and of course Iowa schools are already being defunded. So
and I think the school issue, children that go to school near a CAFO have a much higher percentage of incidence of asthma. You know, as is the kids living in that area, but schools are in jeopardy as well.
yeah.
I'd like to also add, as they lost the fight in Mason City, Ron Prestige had labeled
Thank you.
the city as being racist.
That's
And
right.
a bunch of groups. That was not the case. People didn't want Prestige taking advantage of the minorities that was gonna be brought in. And that's what they was gonna do. They label them as racists and kooks, but yet the people who voted against the project basically had retaliation against them and their families to the point of bullying and to the point where a young great leader took his life.
What was really sad to understand is one of the people on the council, his nephews are building in 2 confinements in Worth County.
Oh,
What the heck was her name? She was a Meyer.
Solbert?
Solberg. She was from Northwood. Her nephew's building it. I just thought of that right now. I wonder if that's a little payback.
She's not running now. You
Well,
know, it's very, very local.
She was the only one that stood up to Ron Prestige and said we were racist.
Uh-huh.
One of the, we go to the Board of Supervisors every single week, and then it's like going to a brick wall, and they keep saying, what's the science, what's the science? When that Monday, when I found out that a CAFO was coming into my house, I wanted to believe that it was not gonna be so bad, that the science, so I right away got online and I Googled beneficial outcomes, positive things for CAFOs. And there was a Google page, and every single thing on that first page talked about how horrible CAFOs are. The only benefits of any research that I found was benefits to the corporate farms and the bankers. Now, so when we go to the Board of Supervisors, they keep saying, where'd you get for information? And so we quote studies and we quote statistics. And I've said to them, I would really like to see the research that says this is positive. My husband called the corporate farms that's sponsoring the CAFO near our house, and he said to the whoever, the point person, I would really like to see the research that indicates and backs up your statements that these are safer, that these, and the guy said, well, it's all on the internet. And my husband, he said, just look on the internet. My husband has said, we have been looking on the internet, and there's nothing there. So at the Board of Supervisors, just yesterday, this woman said, oh, it smells so nice, they don't smell. I said, where's the research? I'd really like to see that no one has offered us any research, even though my husband is kind of a research science nut on the internet. And we haven't been able to find any research. And so that really backs up the statement that Jeff Gorbel was making, that the macro matrix is just arbitrary things, that is arbitrary things that are arbitrary in favor of the moneyed interest. But there is no science to back it up. There's plenty of science to back up how horrible they are. As a matter of fact, John Eichert talks about it's a production system that cannot sustain itself and it will collapse on itself eventually on its own. Particularly because Trump has pulled out of the TPP. The vast majority of the hogs produced in CAFOs are for export to China. And so now that Trump has pulled out of the TPP, where are these? Well, we're out.
Yes.
But Trump has supported that.
Yep.
And he has said, and so there's no place for these pork to be exported. Ron Prestage, who's one of the big pork producers who tried to bring the slaughterhouse into Mason City, on August 7th in Political Magazine said, "I am terrified." I'm quoting.
Scared to death.
I'm scared to death, that's what it is. I'm scared to death. We have already begun to dig our water wells and move dirt. I don't think we are beyond the point of pulling out of this project. And so, all of these things that are ruining the air quality, the water quality for Iowa are for pigs going overseas. It's not to feed Americans. And I would like to quote Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull said, "Do not sell your soul for a greasy slice of bacon." And he meant other things in that, but it's apropos now. We are selling our soul for the almighty buck and a greasy slice of bacon.
What really bothered me the most was, I got this phone call on Saturday or Sunday night about these CAFOs moving in. I went to the meeting that Monday and was talking to
Board of
the
Supervisors meeting.
Board of Supervisors meeting, and I said, well, I'm gonna bring some guys in here to talk to you on it, and the one supervisor, well, bring them in, we'll talk to them like, you know, it's not gonna affect our decisions, you know, we're all for pro-ag, or big ag, and I don't think they realized how many people were coming in to visit with them. But, and then I called Edith that afternoon, but they're sitting there smiling like, there's nothing you can do about it, we're for big ag. And this one supervisor said that Farm Credit had contacted his son about putting up a hog confinement.
And why don't they give these kids those buildings cost between $750,000 and $1 million, and those kids they're gonna be in debt for that money. Do you think the farmers and the bankers would give those kids that amount of money to buy land? So that they could do diversified, sustainable farming? No, this is to put money in the pockets of the corporate interests.
Yep.
So we're gonna go to Bart and then Pam, so make sure they both get a chance to talk, and then open it up to questions.
Just to respond a little bit to your Board of Supervisors, well, I've been in this site since, well, I'll talk around, I guess, for a little bit, but anyway, since 2002. And I remember in 1995 when House Bill 519 was passed, most of the confinements, and I'm a farm girl, so I know what a confinement is, and I've scooped enough manure to know that I wouldn't want a confinement, to have to manage that manure. But I thought at the time, when 519 passed, I thought, well, the legislature won't let this last because that up in northern Iowa, all those ag drainage wells are on the land, and that's a direct shot to the aquifers. Why would you put manure on your land to go straight down to the aquifers that we all depend on for drinking water? But obviously I wasn't thinking right, because it's just gone on and on. Yeah. So in 2002 was when they developed the master matrix, and at the time we were shouting for a moratorium. And my personal opinion is that the legislature was not doing that to be proactive about the environment and all the pollution that these CAFOs were causing. What they were doing was shutting us up about a moratorium by saying, okay, you're right, we're gonna do a master matrix. That master matrix, as many people have said here today, does nothing to protect our communities. Because no matter if you have a good Board of Supervisors who goes out and looks at that site and critiques what was claimed on the master matrix and says, hey, these guys are out of line, it's not gonna work on this site because these conditions exist, it doesn't matter, because if they get their 440 points, they pass the master matrix, they get their permit, you can appeal to the EPC. The EPC has 2% of the time agreed with that appeal. And so there you are. So the master matrix is very, very weak. To talk about a little bit about the Board of Supervisors that give Edith a hard time up there in Worth County. They say, you know, we're gonna support Big Ag. My question to them would be, for what? What? They do nothing for the counties. This is a part that a lot of people don't understand. I would suggest to everybody, including the reporter here, that you talk to an assessor, a county assessor, because they add, though they are agriculture, they add no new revenue to county revenues. So if there's any cleanup to be done, the taxpayers do that because there's no new revenue. You can build 45 new CAFOs at 2,500 pigs a head, and there will be no new revenue for that county to help control the runoff, the pollution and things that they create. Not to mention the management of the manure that rolls off into the ditches, the roads, none of that. There's no new revenue for those counties. So when those boards of supervisors say that, you're gonna say, why? Why do you want more CAFOs? Why do you want to support Big Ag? They don't bring any revenue into the counties, and dollars to no nuts, the Board of Supervisors don't understand that. It took me a little while. I talked to the assessor a couple of times before I got it figured out. So, there's that. Moving right along, in 2002, let's talk about how effective the master matrix is. In 2002, there were 212 impaired waterways in Iowa. We've had the master matrix in effect all this time. 15 years later, there's 750 impaired waterways. So to what extent has the master matrix improved that? We have now 380 new or expanding confined animal facilities per year coming into a state that can no longer support recreation because our recreation areas are becoming polluted. And so there's that. We're worried about, I was worried about aquifers in 1995. That was before there were 200 impaired waterways. Now we don't have to worry about aquifers because we can worry about the drinking water if we want. You know, what have we gained from this master matrix? No one considers, or not no one, but these boards of supervisors that you're fighting with, and Iowa Farm Bureau, I would like to listen to their response. Let's talk about trout streams that are impaired, that have never been polluted before, that are now polluted in northeast Iowa. Let's talk about sick children that are required to live by the CAFOs. The particulates that I think it was Edith talked about. The particulates contain antibiotics. If you don't smell that, usually if you smell a bad odor, if you stay around that bad odor long enough, you don't smell it anymore, but you're still inhaling those antibiotic-laden particulates, which encourage antibiotic resistance should you get sick. So we have sick children, we have sick adults that Edith identified herself as one of those that are required by the master matrix, I guess, and the state of Iowa to live by industrial scale farms. We have poisoned water. A woman today talked about her nitrate level in her private well has now gone to 19 over the last year or so. We have the aromatic hydrocarbons, we have decimated property values, we have the Des Moines Waterworks, and we have a long-term water supply situation. So let's project what's happened. Let's just take what's happened since 2002 and project that into the long term, another 15 years at this rate of addition of confinements. What then happens to the long-term water supply of the citizens of the state of Iowa who are not considered under the master matrix?
Yeah.
Pam, did you want to speak about what's happening in Wayne County too?
I have a question. Well, it was kind of, I know you guys all been in the same situation here, talking about the vision kind of slipping under your nose. And under our nose, they came in and they kind of, Iowa Select came in and they wined and dined our little town, and gave them a bunch of grant money. And then before we knew it, they had 2 different hog facilities set up. We have a main highway to Residrnts town, so it was on the west side of the highway, having 7,500 hogs in each one. And another one went up south of town, and it has at least 75 hogs in it. And then one morning we heard gossip, and they were setting up another huge facility to hold 7,500 head of hogs, less than a mile from my house, less than half a mile from my neighbors. And it would be directly south of another neighbor I have, and he had COPD. And then the morning we went to meet them at the site, we got word that they were also trying to purchase another piece of land which would connect with our county. It's not in our county, but it would be a mile north of my home. And so they are just coming in and taking over our area, throwing out a little money, and saying, oh, well, we'll take care of your roads. Here's $15,000. And my husband runs a road grader, and he said, your $15,000 won't even cover your 4 miles of gravel from the highway. So we've really been in distress because we can't believe how they've come in and taken over, and now getting familiar with the master matrix. I had no idea until that it didn't protect us. Like, oh my gosh, they get to fail and still get to do this. And my husband grew up on a small hog farm with his dad and his grandpa, and that's kind of what they did. It was right there at their house. And we're still farmers. We now have cows, but this just blows my mind. So we all kind of clung together and went down, and our supervisors denied it. They all voted against it. They don't want it in our county. They realize the loss that we're going to have because of it. So they all agreed to disapprove it. Well, they did pass it with a 440, so then with some more discussion and some help from Just America, they did lower that score to a 410. And so right now it's sitting in the hands of the DNR, and we're not really sure what way it's going to go, but there's very few people in our county that want this to go through, except for the people they wined and dined. So I'm not impressed that that's how some of these corporations work and think that that's okay. That's awful. And that's why we need our DNR to protect us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pam. I think what's happening in Wayne County is going to be a really good test because their county denied the master matrix, and now it's in the DNR's hands. So if this document was truly meant to protect us and the environment, the DNR should deny it, right?
They didn't.
Right.
Right. So we'll see what happens with the DNR. They have, what is it, just like 2.5 more weeks, right, Pam, before they have to have their deadline?
Yes, they have until the 30th, and we've kind of been calling them every day, asking if the permit's gone, if it has been turned into them for this other one, because Iowa Select would not say yes or no, and finally my husband just said, I want a straight up answer. You know, and they finally said they haven't purchased the land, but they're looking into it. So they just are, trying to get in everywhere they can.
Awesome. Really quick, before I let you ask a question, I'm adding one more on here, just remembered another one. Just want to tell you the stories of CUB, all the other ones, the people who weren't here. So you heard about Worth County. There's 7 unpermitted. Are they all under 2,500, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a 9,600 farrowing unit, but because of the weight of the hogs, it brings it it's still unregulated.
Okay. So we're all unpermitted. Yeah, Wayne is 7,400-ish, permitted, supervisors have denied it, we're waiting for the DNR. In Woodbury County, just southeast of Sioux City, there's a community there who have 2 nurseries that are small, coming in, but they have enough land that they're gonna be building finishers here in a little bit. And they talked to the developers, and by the way, the reason Woodbury County people aren't here today is because they're going to their supervisor meeting this evening to try to get their supervisors to sign on to our petition. So, good job, Woodbury County.
Yes.
But they have 2 small nurseries. They talked to the developer. The developer said, no, we have no plans to build anymore. And she said, can you put it in writing? He said, no. And then just this weekend, they found out that they applied for a $24.99 head finisher. So they're lying, they're not good neighbors. So they're in a battle in Woodbury County to stop this expansion. They think there could be a much bigger expansion down the road because they bought enough acres to really build a ton in Woodbury. Hardin is with Pine Lake, and they have like a 2,400 head site, I think, they're trying to build in Hardin County right now.
They, I contacted the supervisors, and versus signing on to our petition, they wanna go through Pat Grassley, and they wanna go the long route around, and, a lot of excuses. One of the supervisors, his name is Lance Granzo, he's very tight with Farm Bureau, and when they did their resolution, Farm Bureau come in and wrote it. It's very, very weak. So I'm trying to get it through BJ Hoffman. BJ tipped me off to, it was Lance Granzo that pushed the Farm Bureau to be there. So we do have a water quality meeting coming up with Rob Hogue, the 27th, I believe. And we need to keep pressuring the supervisors. So.
Yeah. So Hardin County, we want to keep our eye on. And also Dubuque County, we got a call from a woman named Sue just late last week. And they're building a small nursery in the middle of a residential area. Wow. In the middle, but it's small, so there's nothing to do about it. But they're very mad, and so she's gonna still try to organize to stop it. But that's still, I'm still trying to find the details out about that one.
Wouldn't the town ordinance stop it if it's?
Well, it's technically in between Dubuque and a suburb that used to be a small farming community, but the town has grown to where there's just like this one farmer never sold out to any of the developments.
So it must be zoned agriculture still.
Still zoned, yeah, so he can build there, but there's houses all around in the middle of a development area.
Wow.
But it's something to do with it's in the middle of two towns that have grown and squeezed